Okay, so we're back for round two of the SI playoff predictions. First, I just want to talk about the games today, and then we'll get into the lower bracket matches that we'll be predicting for tomorrow. So for the first game, we talked about this yesterday, or I talked about it. MAD versus SSG, right? NA versus NA, and that it was SSG are kind of known for farming NA, but when it comes to international events, SSG aren't always the best. Um, but SSG did just win the NA matchup here, and it was pretty decisive as well. And then I did say after that, whoever won this would probably still lose to Wildcard because Wildcard's form has just looked really good this tournament. And in particular, if SSG won, that Wildcard would definitely win because Wildcard just owned SSG, and that did come true. So I don't feel unjustified for picking M80 here because um, they've proven all year that they're a very good team. Um, but yeah, they just kind of had a. I think it's really just kind of had a rough one here with the matchup being just another NA team. I think if this wasn't another NA team, they probably would have won or had a much better showing at least. Um, but yeah, definitely rough to see M80 go down lower bracket early. Um, Next, yeah, Fluxo versus D plus Kia. This one was just kind of an easy one. Like I said, D plus Kia have just kind of been on fraud watch after they actually got some wins in the group stage. But Fluxo did close it out, and then, like I thought, they just wouldn't be able to handle FaZe. Still, FaZe are still like FaZe and Furia still are the two best teams in Brazil, and they just run that region. And then Furia versus Heretics kind of went really just how I expected. Just Furia are just better. They just have more experience, whereas Heretics are, you know, they're just coming into the scene and they still have a lot of growing to do as a team. Um, and then Furia versus Weibo. I said specifically in my video yesterday that I'm picking Weibo because I want them to win. I didn't. I specifically said it was only because I want them to them. I said the logical, safe choice was to just pick Furia, and Furia did win. Um, but I wanted to see Weibo do it, but they just couldn't. They couldn't hold it together in those late rounds. Particularly if you go back and watch Alaire, there were just so many moments where Weibo would be in man advantage, particularly on attack, like massive man advantages, and they would just feed one by one gunfights to Furia and let Furia crawl back into rounds over and over again. So it was kind of rough to watch at, but it is something you kind of expect to see from APAC teams because it's been a problem with APAC teams for years. Even the better ones is because they don't, practice against those top quality teams all the time. They're not used to um, playing in those situations where they have man advantage, but they still need to, you know, play smart to keep control of the round and not just throw bodies knowing they can win the gunfights because that's never really been a problem for APAC. And I mean, it's not really a problem for any top teams, but um, I think some people have like the misconception that APAC like has no gun skill, but that's just frankly not true. I think they actually have some of the best gun skill out of the teams here. Specifically Daystar. I think those guys are like genuinely nasty, but like right, they're just kind of a raw team, right? They just are not on the level of depth and experience as the other teams, which is why they're not as good. And then Falcons versus Shopify, this was so close. I remember I was like, I kind of wanted both teams to win. I like both these teams. I kind of wanted both teams to win, and it went 7-7 map three. But I knew for my prediction, I had Falcons, so I was like, when it was 7-7 map three, and Shopify had that 5v3, I was like, oh no, we're not getting that one. And but Shaiko came in and clutched up. So thank you, Shaiko, for that. And then I really thought Secret would be able to come in and play well, but I think that that whole thing of Falcons kind of like, getting into the server today and getting, time to play before their next game really showed versus Secret today, where Falcons looked like they were ready to go and they were shooting, where Secret were just kind of slowed today and couldn't really get anything going. And they got 2-0'd, which isn't really that surprising. The history of these teams this year has been pretty back and forth, typically leaning a little more in Falcons' favor, I find, especially in the recent months. But this was never really an easy one to predict. Um, but I am happy that Falcons will get to play in front of the home crowd in Paris. I think that's huge. And same for Wildcard as well. Baby Shark getting to play in front of his family as well. That is very nice to see. Very wholesome. Okay, so now lower bracket. Now let's talk about this top part of the bracket here, because this is brutal, bruh. Well, let's just talk about all of this here in general. This is brutal. M80 G2, and then the winner of that has to play Secret on the same day. That is just brutal. Um, so between these two teams, they both kind of had a bit of a slow tournament, right? Like they've had, whereas I feel like M80 have just been kind of like, you know, middling out a lot of their matches, and I'd say their worst loss, I don't know, would it be the Fear X game? It was kind of a meaningless game for them. It probably would be the SSG. It was just kind of like they got their shit stomped in, kind of. It was pretty bad. Um, and then G2, right? Of course, they had the all the overtime losses. Every map they've lost this event has been in overtime. It's been very close, but they like have moments where they just, you know, kind of just unnecessarily throw bodies for no real reason other than they feel confident, I think. But then they get shit on. So I think G2 will have an easier time clearing that up, and they kind of already did in that phase game. Like they did a much better job of like managing those late round situations in the phase game, which gave me some more confidence in G2 this tournament. And to be honest, M80 really haven't shown too much to me that I'm really confident in them going far, because like all the teams they've beaten here are um, also either eliminated or down in the lower bracket. Like they lost to Fearax, who got eliminated. They lost at Weibo, who did lose today, but they're still like, ahead of them here in the playoffs, because they got the number one seed. And they've only beaten NIP, who are also down here, right? And they also beat Heretics, who are also down here. Um, whereas G2, right, they've actually beaten one of like the premier like level teams here that I think a lot of people were rating G2 as this event as a also a high level team on the levels of Furia, Falcons, FaZe, Secret, and even like I would put Wildcard up there now too. They've only improved for this year, and they look to be at kind of their best form that they have been, which is the perfect time to be. If you want to be in your best form ever, this is the tournament you want to be at. And I think I'm gonna take G2 for this game. Um, I think they've just been looking a little better than M80. Um, even though I do trust Fabian a lot to get the boys in shape for game day, but I feel like the also a bit of the stomp and plot armor might come in for that one. So next we have D plus Daystar. This is just a weird one, bro. This is two teams that a lot of people had. I had D plus going out in groups, and a lot of people had Daystar going out in groups. So these are two teams that I would think most people don't rate very highly. Um, and I'm just gonna pick Daystar for the hate watch, um, and purely for that reason only. Even though D plus Kia are probably the better team. I don't know. Do I want to troll that prediction? I feel like D plus have been playing better like this event. Like they did, you know, they have put up some good fights, but it's like, I feel Daystar could also, they could really surprise D plus and actually beat them, right? With their just because the way they play, like their Daystar's gun skill, I think is definitely better than D plus, like significantly, to be honest. Like this is the Unk 12 stringer Brazil stack versus the young Asian gunners. I think they're from Taiwan, if I'm correct on that. Most of them, at least. But yeah, I feel like there is a world where Daystar does win this. This is genuinely probably the hardest one for me to predict. Uh, well, there's this as well. Oh, this one's a real toss up. I'm gonna go on to Team Heretics and Auction and maybe come back to that one. Now, both these teams are kind of mid. This is a mid off, to be honest. Um, because like Heretics have been like in the groups they were solid, right? But they're still like Heretics are also they're not good enough to beat any of the top teams. And then same with Auction, right? They just they get farmed by SSG, right? Because SSG farm an A except for Wildcard, and then they lose to the two teams that I did think were better than. They lost to Secret and Flux of W7M, and that I kind of expected that, right? And then same with Heretics, where they would lose to M80 in that, but they were able to beat some of the lower tier teams in their group. Like, let me check again. Just want to make sure who they. Yeah, like they beat NIP, right, and they beat Furex, but then they lose. Yeah, they lost to Weibo and M80, right? So it's like this one's also hard. I want to just trust Oxygen more. I feel like I just trust Oxygen a little more to win that match than Heretics, but I definitely could see Heretics coming out on that one. And then Shopify versus NIP. Um, I just don't want to pick NIP. They're just chronic shakers, bro, and they really haven't been very good this tournament. They only beat Furex, and they got grouped, and Furex just like aren't very good. So yeah. All right, now G2 Secret. Uh, this has been we've seen this matchup so many times this year, right? Where let's go to G2. Look at the head-to-head for this one because oh, I forgot to put in the dates. Oh, we can just look at the 2025. Ignore anything before that. So yeah, we know start of the year, right? In stage one, G2 kind of owned them, but then they got fucking stomped at EWC, and then in stage two, they lost a secret like in playoffs again in the BO3s, but in both at Munich and in the EML finals, G2 beat Secret um, in both matches they played. And let's just look at these two most recent ones, right? So obviously, right, G2's permaban is Clubhouse. They're number one permaban. And they're not like huge fans of Border and Shelly either. But G2, this event they've been playing a little more Border, right? Um, haven't really seen the Chalet yet. Um, so I don't really know if they'll play that. But let's look at these two. All right. So even here in the EML finals, right? G2 actually beat Secret on Border, and the Border is like a notorious, top map for Secret. So that's actually pretty impressive. And then they shit on them on Cafe. They shit on them on Cafe at Munich as well, and also Lair. I think G2 are probably the best Lair team at this event, probably from what I've seen. That shit they did a phase was just diabolical. That was a curb stomp if I've ever seen one. And then yeah, Bank. G2 are good at Bank, but like so are Secret, right? And Bank, I feel like G2 have played it so many times. It's almost like a risky map for them because they've shown it so much. Um, is that I don't even know what G2 have left, if they have anything in their Bank playbook. Like that's how much they've played it this year. Um, but it is like a consistent map for them. Like they'll always run the score pretty high on Bank, even whether they win or lose it. Um, of course, no skyscraper in the pool anymore, so we kind of have to ignore the skyscraper data because now we have Fortress. And I just think maps like these are going to be pretty similar. Like, I definitely think we could see a Border if this is the series we get, because G2 seem more confident in it, and they have beat Secret on Border in an official pretty recently. Secret seem to keep letting the cafe through, even though they keep getting bullied on it. So I doubt they'll let it through this time. I feel like there is a possibility of Lair because Secret. I think they do like Lair, but I feel like G2 are just on a different level of Lair. I feel like there's no way we see Club really. I feel like Bank is also definitely a possibility. Same with Nighthaven Labs as well. Um, I doubt a Chalet would come through, but it's not completely out of the realm. But I feel like a series like this would have like Border Labs and either Bank or Lair would be like the maps we'd probably see, or I would expect to see. Maybe a Fortress, right? I don't really know too much about these teams' fortresses, right? G2 have only played it one time, and I think Secret only played it once or twice as well. So it's hard to base something off of that little data when you've only seen it so few times, right? They played it, yeah. They lost it to SSG, and then yeah, they played it one time and lost it, right? So they don't seem to be super comfortable on that fortress. So that could be something if G2 are feeling confident on. It could be a map they pick, um, which could be a little scary because maybe Secret are hiding stuff on that, because they only lost a group stage game to it, and I doubt they've shown their. They have plenty more to show on Fortress, I suspect, if they've been practicing it. Which I think if you want to be, contending for this event, that you need to be a good Fortress team. So I think it's a good weapon to have in your arsenal. But I think I'm going to take G2 here. They just seem to, for the most part, kind of own Secret, except for that brief period, like EWC, of course, and then Stage 2 playoffs, but they seem to be back on track with owning Secret. And then whoever comes out of this Daystar D plus smorgasbord over here, whatever's going to happen, I have Weibo winning. I think everyone knows that Weibo is like the best APAC team. And even though they lost to Furia today, I don't think that'll destroy their mental enough to the point where they're losing to Daystar or D plus. I feel like that'd be ridiculous. And I got a similar thing here. I feel like whoever wins this OXG versus Heretics game is probably gonna lose to Fluxo W7M. Now, if OXG do play Fluxo W7M, I think it'll be um you know a close game again, right? Like, and OXG could win as well, because of the whole when teams play each other a second time, typically the team that loses the first bout has a much better chance of the second because they've probably learned a lot from that, whereas the team that wins will never learn as much as the team that loses. So I think that's definitely a possibility. But Oxygen to me are like they just feel like you know they're just like mid. And Fluxo WB7M definitely haven't been the best team at this tournament either. But I feel like they're I'm not confident in Oxygen being like a top 8 team, but I definitely could see Fluxo being top 8, top 6, maybe even a top 4 team, um, if things go their way. Um, and then Shopify SSG, if this is the matchup we get here, I just feel like SSG because like the NA matchup. Though Shopify, I saw a lot of good stuff from them today in their match against Falcons, and they genuinely probably should have won it. Um, Not that I'm that mad about it because of my prediction, but that 5v3 was a little rough on that 7-7. Probably should not have let that happen, to be honest. But yeah, this is I think what I'm gonna go with. Again, this is the hard one for me. I just like, you know, for me, I gotta commit. I feel like I have to commit to the D plus Kia and the Elevate Hate Watch, right? Like I've been doing it all year. I haven't every tournament they've been in, I have not picked them to win a single time. Whether and whether they won or lost, I will still predict against them. Uh, so yeah, I this is gonna be my predictions. Um, and I will be back tomorrow for one more round of predictions for these upper semifinals and the round 3 of the lower bracket here. So again, make sure to save your predictions. And yeah, thank you and have a good one.